Oh, hi. Hi, I'm Beth O'Leary. I think people are probably just turning up, so I will just wait a little while longer with my lemon and honey tea because, as you can hear, I'm a little bit poorly. But when you arrive, please do say hi in the comments. Let me know where you are, what's in your mug or glass this evening. Just, yeah, come say hello. And then we can start chatting about my new book, which is The No Show. This is the gorgeous Australian edition here. I'm looking forward to telling you all about it. And I'll talk a little bit as well about my other books and hey Brenton, hi. And kind of my writing journey. Hello, Carolyn. It's really nice to see people arriving. Hey. Yes, so I'll tell you a little bit about my other books and kind of how I write and why I write. Hi Jessica in Camperdown, Victoria with a cup of tea. Nice, love it. Hi Hayley. Oh, hi Christine in Mount Helen. So I thought I would just start by we're here to talk about the No Show in its gorgeous orange squash yellow glory. But I thought I would tell you a little bit about my other books first. So The Flat Share, was my debut novel, and it was the book that completely changed my life, really. It's sold over 1 million copies across the world, and been published in 30 something languages, which is still just something I just can't get my head around. Like, it's the most surreal thing. Like, this was a story that I wrote on my train journey to and from work. That's when I used to do my writing. And I dreamt of being published one day. I've always written and always loved writing, but I dreamt that it would happen, but I never really believed it would. And this book was the one that did it. It was my first book actually writing. I'd finished I think probably about 5 novels by the time I wrote The Flat Share. So there were lots and lots, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of discarded words before The Flat Share was born and before I became an author. But it was the first time I'd written a whole book in an adult voice. Like, I used to sort of write kind of teen YA stuff. And it just felt right. Like, I knew as soon as I did it, like, this is the one. Oh, hey to everyone that's joining. I'm just going to say a quick hello to Wendy and Tracy, Karen, Tamasine. Hey, you love The Flat Share. Thank you so much. So I had this absolutely whirlwind couple of months of, where I got an agent, which would have been enough to like completely make my year. Like, it was, I still remember the feeling of getting that email from Tanara, who's my agent, where she said, I loved the book and I'd love to meet for a coffee and talk about it. And it was like this rush of just euphoria, because it's just like it's like winning the lottery for me. And then it just snowballed. And yeah, it was unbelievably exciting. So that book changed my life. And it's being made into a TV series at the moment. So yeah, incredibly exciting. That is my debut. And The Switch is my second novel, my tricky second album, as everybody so helpfully tells you when you're trying to write it. Honestly, like, I struggled writing this book. I'm really, really proud of it now. And, I love it to pieces, but it was hard to write. And I think I felt the pressure of The Flat Share, and the fact that, it had a lot of readers and a lot of fans, and I didn't want to let people down. And also I was conscious of being so lucky to do this job that, I quit my day job and became a writer full time after The Flat Share sold. And so I remember thinking, like, right, I'm going to sit down and work so hard on this because I want this so badly. Like, I'm going to give it everything I've got. And I've learned now that that's just not really how writing works. Like, you can't just sort of sit yourself down and apply yourself and then you'll get a great book. Sometimes you need to do the opposite. You need to walk away from your desk, and, you know, go for a walk with the dog, or make a really elaborate dinner and chop lots of things up, because that like helps give you time to think. So yeah, I learned a lot through writing The Switch, but this is a story about a grandmother and a granddaughter who swap lives for 2 months. It's very wholesome and lovely, and a great springtime read. Yeah, so, and it's been optioned by Steven Spielberg's production company. So that's like, I'll just drop that in too, which is still something that, as you can see, I can't say without grinning. I'll just pause to answer a couple of questions and then jump back into telling you about my backlist. But Kathy said, why do publishers do different covers for each country? Which is such a great question. So I think it's just that different parts of the world have different kind of trends with books, and like in the US, my books look really different. So in fact, I've got one here. This is the No Show in the US. And it's like much more of a thing to have people on the front in American publishing. So there are always people, and I love it because it just means I get extra covers of my books. But yeah, it just seems to be a sort of convention of, and like, I think I tend to love UK and US covers, and like a lot of, I mean, I love all my covers because they're like books in different languages, which is crazy, like seeing my name on a different cover. But I think it's interesting to see whether, like, if you generally prefer UK covers or US ones, or like the German cover or whatever. My taste does generally fit with the UK one. I usually, like, if I'm looking at other people's books, I'm usually like, oh yeah, I prefer the UK cover, which is interesting because maybe I am like in that trend as well. Like maybe I fit that too. And Sharon's asked, do you have much input in the covers? So that really depends on which of my editions it is. So with the cover that you guys see, this one, I have like a lot of input in. We actually worked really, really hard on this cover because the first version, well, not even the first version, but the first version that we kind of felt like we were onto something. We just weren't happy with the color. It was completely different from this. It was kind of like a turquoise. And it was actually really early on in my, I had a baby in the last year, and my little one was really small, and I was like sending voice notes because I never had two hands to type an email because I always had a baby in arms. But I sent this voice note like, oh, I'm not sure about the color. I want it to have that feel of like, it's a color that you wouldn't have thought of doing, but it's got that slightly like, oh wow, like I didn't know I wanted that, but I did, kind of feeling to it. And so my amazing team went away and they did so many versions before they landed on this amazing color, which they've called orange squash yellow, and which just, I mean, the camera doesn't really capture it, but it does so completely what I wanted it to do, which is like really jumps out, but doesn't look like anything you've kind of seen before. And we always use the same amazing illustrator, who's called Helen, and she's done all the images on the front of my of these editions. And we struggled with what to put on the front of the No Show because it's a book about three women who are all stood up on the worst day to be stood up, Valentine's Day. And like actually having someone sort of like the whole concept is about somebody not being there, and it's quite hard to like express an absence on a cover. So I think it's so clever what she's done, the like empty chair. Oh, that's really interesting. Tracy says she generally prefers UK covers. Thank you. She says all your UK covers have been great. Yes, Jessie says, I saw a new blue cover for the road trip. This one, I think, is the one you mean. So this is the paperback of the road trip, which is my third novel about two exes who crash cars on their way to a mutual friend's wedding. Sorry, I'm just going to pause because, as you can hear, my voice is going. I'm a bit poorly at the minute. It sounds worse than it is, but I don't want to lose my voice before the half hour is up. Yes, and we went for a different look for the paperback. Partly, I think, because we were going so bright with the No Show, and we kind of wanted, like, my novels in hardback had that gorgeous pale sort of look, but we kind of wanted to match the vibrancy of the No Show. And also, I think this is a really hot summery book, and it needed like a bold summery cover. Oh, Danielle says she loved the road trip. Thank you. So a couple of questions. So Wendy's asked, did you do any courses or such between your early unpublished works and the Flatshare? I actually didn't, but I did work so I got a job in children's publishing, and though it was a very different bit of publishing from the part of publishing that I'm in now, so I was working on kind of licensed books, so things like Peppa Pig and In the Night Garden, and but I think what it did show me that was really important for me was, like, I was in the building with it happening for people. So, like, I was seeing people's that dream come true for people, and I think it made me feel like, do you know what, this does happen to some people. So it kind of gave me that, I guess, that kind of courage to keep going with writing, and that I might get there. So that was really, and also I think it taught me about selling books and like pitching books, because I would see people in acquisitions meetings, suggesting a new book that they wanted to buy, and I'd think about, the way that they pulled that kind of pitch together, and I think that probably really helped me with getting an agent, because I had seen how the world works in publishing a bit more. But I didn't do any courses. I do know a lot of writers who've got a huge amount out of creative writing courses, so I think it's just different for everyone. Drink break. Okay, so Sharon said, do you have a writing routine? Do you write every day? My writing routine is a little up in the air at the moment. As I say, I recently had a baby, and writing has kind of gone back to being something that is squeezed into little pockets of day where I can find time, which is always what it was for me when I was first starting out and when I wrote the Flatshare. But kind of on a regular day, when I'm writing a first draft, I write 2,000 words a day, which is a lot for me. And it's a lot because I do that on purpose, because if I force myself to write 2,000 words, then I can't go back and correct them or, fiddle around with them. And it's fast enough that I have to just keep going. And I can't sort of like overthink. I've got to just put the words down. So they tend to be messy 2,000 words, but I found that really, really works for me. And then in editing stage, which is when the vast majority of the work is for me, I'm a very inefficient writer. Every book, I delete a lot as I go along. And actually with this one, with the No Show, I had a total bolt out of the blue idea about 3/4 of the way through my first draft, and I went back to the beginning and basically rewrote it. But it was such a good idea that I couldn't, as in I felt so excited about it that I just couldn't let it go. I was like, I don't care how many words I have to delete, like, this idea is too good to miss. But what I normally do when I finally got a whole first draft, and that's usually involved tens and tens of thousands of words being deleted, sorry, is I sit in that chair there and I read it on an e-reader. And that is really painful because my first drafts are always awful. But I find it really helpful to read it, not on the screen, take myself away to where I actually can't do any tweaks. And then I write notes about what I want to change. And then that's kind of how I dig into the second draft. And my routine on those days is to kind of sit at the desk for long chunks of time and then take maybe a 2-hour break to go for a walk or whatever it might be, because it's a bit more kind of bum in chair work, I think, when you get to second draft. Like, you've got to just sit down and you've got to do it, whereas the first draft, sometimes you've got to listen to that instinct that says, I just want to, something's not right with this story. I need to rethink. And then you've got to take yourself away. But yeah, once I'm kind of editing and proofreading, it's much more like kind of regular job in that sense. Okay, Haley says, without giving away the story of the no-show, which is very hard not to do whilst talking about this book. How did you bring the concept to life? Did you have to write the story backwards to make it all come together and make sense so perfectly? I've been trying to figure it out since I finished reading this. Okay, right. I'm going to try and answer this without giving anything away. I had a spreadsheet. This is my plottiest book. Like, I've never had so much plot. It's 3 stories, and it's it's the story of 3 women, kind of how they're connected by this one man who stands them up on Valentine's Day. And I had to keep a really close eye on what was happening all the time so that I didn't lose track of where we were. And I had a few, honestly, we had a thing in this house called Book 4 face. Before this book had a title, it was just Book 4. And there's a particular face that me and my husband used to pull when we were talking about this book, which was kind of like, because it was just so complicated to work out. And we had one day where I figured out the whole ending on a walk, and we finished the walk and got back to our house. And I still hadn't figured it out yet. I was like, I'm nearly there. And I really find like it, walking and talking plot really helps me. And so my husband was like, let's just keep going. So we just did the whole loop again as I talked through, like, okay, and then the next chapter could be this, and the next chapter could be this. And I don't know, like there was like a sort of frenzied time where I could feel I was right on the edge of figuring out how to make everything fit together. And then it did. And I still feel a little bit like I can't believe I pulled it off. Like I look at the story now and I think, like, I'm so proud of it. But also, like, how did that happen? I almost feel like it was out of my hands. Like, I sometimes feel the best moments when writing are when you feel like you're not writing it, you're sort of discovering it, and that the story is already there and you're just kind of digging it out, and yeah, that was how I felt with this one. I still can't really believe it came together. So I think the answer to your question is with the power of a spreadsheet and a lot of dog walks. Okay, Jessie Joseph has said, out of the 3 women, which character was your favourite one to write about? So I'll tell you a little bit about them as I answer this. So we start with Siobhan, who is really kind of fiery, strong. She's a very loyal friend. She has a very quick temper. And she lives in Ireland. The second woman is Miranda. She's a tree surgeon, so she cuts down trees for a living, climbs trees for a living. She's very kind of fresh-faced and honest and adventurous and wears her heart on her sleeve. And then there's Jane, who is in Winchester, which is the city where I grew up, so I really enjoyed writing about it. And Jane is kind of quiet, and she sticks to her routines. She loves books. She loves her cat. She works at a charity shop, and she definitely has things in her life that she hasn't felt able to share. Hang on, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry that I sound so poorly. I promise it's not as bad as it sounds. So of those 3, I think my favorite to write was probably Miranda, because she just had such a sunny outlook on the world that, like, when I stepped into Miranda's shoes for her chapters, I just felt like I was seeing, I don't know, I was just seeing the world in such a positive light. And she, there's a line in her first chapter where she says, like, or maybe her second chapter, where she says, every day is a good day if you look hard enough. And it was really lovely to just embody that attitude for a little bit. So yes, I think Miranda was my favorite to write, but I love all 3 of them with my whole heart, truly. I feel so kind of warmly connected to those characters now. Kathy says, do you have a favorite book that you've written? Oh my God, that's a difficult question. Um, so the Flat Share will always have a really, really special place in my heart. And I think partly because I wrote it completely without any sense of, I wrote it in the hope that someone might read it one day, but I wrote it purely for the joy of writing and the hope that one day I might become an author, and there was a kind of freedom to that. And also, like, this book is why I'm able to do this. Like, I feel so kind of fortunate, and I feel like this book kind of gave me that. So I think this one will always be incredibly special to me for that reason. But otherwise, the one that is my favorite changes all the time. So at the moment, I would say it's The No Show, because it's just out and I'm so excited about everyone discovering it, and I'm really, really proud of it. And I've just finished it, but that's how I felt about the road trip a year ago. So I don't know, like, it kind of, my favorite sort of shifts, but the Flat Share will always be special. Oh, Cassie says, what book do you have sitting on your bedside table at the moment? So oh God, I'm reading so many things at once. I'm reading a book called Cult Classic by Sloane Crosley, I think, who's an American writer. And it's a proof, so it's not out yet. It's completely unlike anything I've ever read. It's about it's kind of literary, it's like a literary rom-com, I'd say. And it's about a woman who goes to a restaurant and bumps into her ex, and then ends up going to the same next restaurant the next night because a friend of hers is like, I want to try this restaurant. And she's like, oh, I've just been there. But she goes back and she meets a different ex. And then she starts bumping into an ex every night. And it's really, really funny and dry and clever. And I went into it with, when you pick up a book blind, which, by the way, is how I would recommend reading this, like, just pick it up and see what happens. And it's really surprising me, and I'm enjoying it a lot, but it's not at all what I expected. So yeah, I'd recommend. Tara says, how involved is your family and husband in the writing process? That's a really interesting question. Very, like, particularly my husband. I think as I've written more and more, and writing was always a big part of my life and something I shared with him early on, but he's become he's the best sounding board. Like, he's an amazing person to brainstorm with, because he's very, very positive, which is what you need at this stage, when you're like at the idea stage and you're like, you want someone to brainstorm with where you can throw every idea out there and they're not going to go, that won't work, that's rubbish. And he would never do that. He will always say kind of, yeah, that sounds great. So I feel like it's a space, when I'm talking with him, it's a space where I can just explore every idea. And I really find that talking out loud helps me a lot with plot, and with character as well, when I'm trying to work out like we'll plot walk, as we call it, where we just go out and walk and talk plot. And sometimes I'll bring something to that. Like, I'll say, like, I can't work out why Jane does this. And we'll walk along and I'll be like, it could be this from her past, or it could be that this happened to her, or perhaps she's the sort of person who X. And then we'll sort of throw things around and see if they feel true. And then I usually talk myself into a place where I'm like, yeah, do you know what? It's that's why it is. But I have a few close friends who are writers now. Jilly, my best friend, and I voice note each other all the time about sort of plot and while we're writing. And she's an enormous help as well. Like, I think it's helpful to speak to somebody who is also creating novels, so kind of knows what that's like. So that's Gillian McAllister. You should look out for her books. She's brilliant. Kylie says, hi, Beth. What inspired you to become a writer? Oh, it's hard to say that, because I've literally always wanted to be one. And I think I remember, like, as a child, I wanted to be a writer. I used to write stories on like scraps of paper that my mum would like print stuff she didn't need for work, and I'd write on the back of those scraps of paper, write stories. So I don't really remember not wanting to be a writer. I think it's just because I love books so much, and I was always a big reader. And there's just something about escaping into a novel. Like the thing that means the most to me probably is when I get a message from a reader saying that one of my books, helped them escape like a difficult week, or just swept them away, or meant something to them. And I think that's what books have always been for me, and it is such a privilege and honor to like get to give other people that, like for my stories to give other people that. And honestly, to be honest, I'm not myself if I'm not writing. Like, having been poorly for a little while, I've not been able to write, and that makes me really sad. Like I if I don't have that, I feel like part of myself's kind of shut off. And once I'm in the world of the story again, I like come back to life. Like, it sounds really overdramatic, but that is how it is for me. Like, writing is part of who I am. So Julie says, did you have any input into the audiobook cast? The different narrators capture the vibe of the characters really well. I'm so glad you like it. So I don't have any sort of input into who they choose, but they're amazing at picking people, aren't they? Like, all the audiobook narrators have been incredible, I think. Like, even just, yeah, every single one. And I must listen to all the audiobooks again, because like close to publication, I always find it quite hard to listen to my audiobooks, because it's sort of like if you can imagine someone reading your work aloud, like it makes me sort of go, oh, like or like I would maybe change that bit, or oh, I wouldn't have said it like that now, because I don't know, it's just different when you hear it out loud versus when you see it written on the page. So I sometimes find it a little bit painful, but I also always feel like that's when it's properly a book. When I get sent they send me like a little sample of each of the readers once they start recording. And when I get that through on email, I'm like, oh my God, this is a real book, and it's gone out into the world, and it, like, in some sense, it belongs to other people now. So yeah, that, like, the audiobooks are really special to me, actually. So I should give them another listen. So Tamazine says, can you tell us anything about your next book? No, I'm not telling anybody anything. No, and that is because I have had a baby. I'm writing a bit slower, so I'm at a really early stage, like an earlier stage than I would normally be at this point in the year with a book. And if I share too early, it's almost like, I think it's slightly superstitious. I feel like I'm going to jinx it, or that someone will just say, like, not quite the right thing, or their facial expression won't be quite right, and the idea will just fold. But I will say that of all my books, I think it's closest to the flat share, and with an added element of adventure. That's all I'm saying. So I think this is probably the last question. I feel like this has flown by, and I'm sorry if I've missed anybody's questions as I've gone along. But Tara said, do I have any input into the cover design of my book, which we've talked a little bit about before, but I do have some input into the ones in like the UK and the US, but some of them in other countries, they just arrive on my doorstep, and I'm like, wow, there it is, like a book with my name on it. So yeah, it really depends. And I also, like, it's such a skill creating book covers, and I very much like leave it in the hands of the people who are professionals, because I would never like suggest what I want to be on the front, because like I would never have thought of the things that they've done, like the flat share being the bed from this angle with that lamp. Like, it's iconic, and I don't know how they thought of it. Yeah, I would never have imagined that. So I think the skill of a book cover designer is giving you something that you're like, oh, of course, but you don't even realize it. So Wendy says, thank you for speaking with us tonight, and get well soon. Thank you. It's been nice to have something to like, keep me company whilst I sort of croak away. And thank you for being patient with my voice. It's been a pleasure to talk to you all, and I really hope that you enjoy the No Show. Thank you so much. Bye.